From Galactic Goonies to Galactic Goonies. Hi, everybody. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining us on this live version of the Resistance broadcast. We are so excited to finally be here to talk to you about Skeleton Crew episodes 1 and 2. Lacey with me as always. Lacey, you and I have been so ready to be Galactic Goonies, and now the show is here. Skeleton Crew is here. Are you as pumped as I am to talk about the new Star Wars live action show?
I am super pumped. This show has been my number one this year that I've been, since last year, honestly. Since they announced it, I've been hyped for the show. I've been waiting for this kind of adventure tale, family focus, kids, like just having a blast, having a good time, bringing me back to what made me fall in love with Star Wars, which was creatures and the want for more and the Luke Skywalker isms, if you will. And yeah, you and I have been planning this show for a while. I made that intro, I think, like a month and a half ago. Like I
Yeah.
was so hyped a month and a half ago that I made that intro.
Yeah, for any of our audio listeners, check out the video version for the intro Lacey put together. Gets you excited, gets you
Oh,
pumped up, and it's a good kickoff for this show. Now, before we get into anything, we want to give a special thank you to Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explained. We were on their show 2 hours ago, and we had a lot of fun. Yeah, showing drawings of some of our moments. My son drew mine, so it was Brutus shooting SM-33, and Lacey drew Neil in the tub. Molly drew Neil in the tub, and Alex threw something together last second, but he did a great job. But yeah, thank you to both of them so much for having us. It was an absolute blast. It was a good time chatting Star Wars with them. And might as well segue that into a quick shot.
Oh no. Alex said that Molly says your intro music is way better and now we're fighting again. So thanks. I liked yours, Alex.
Alex, pour her a pint and settle your differences. But yeah, we had such a good time with them. And it's probably a good time to pull up our upcoming guests for the show, as Alex and Molly will be joining us for episode 4 of Skeleton Crew. So next week, December 11th, our buddies Alex and Mac of Children of the Watch will be with us to talk about episode 3. And then December 18th, Alex and Molly from Star Wars Explained will be in the base. So we'll have them back, which is going to be awesome. And then 2 days after Christmas, because we're not going to be live streaming on Christmas Day, Friday, December 27th, Jen Marie from Anakin and His Angel, one of the longest running Star Wars blogs, will be joining us to talk about episode 5, and more guests to come. But we're here to talk about episodes 1 and 2. So there's a lot to get into. But before we do, thanks to anyone joining us live in the chat. Lacey and I, just full disclosure, we're not going to talk about it. We have seen through episode 3. So we're going to be cutting out the segment, which we usually do at the end, which is speculating on the next episode. So in turn, we want to hear from you in the chat on what you think is going to happen in the 3rd episode. And we'll try to get to some of those at the end of the show. Super chats are available if you'd like your comment read on the show. We appreciate all the support. I do see there's a couple already we'll get to in just a moment. And for anyone who is new to the Resistance broadcast, we are a Star Wars podcast weekly. We usually go live, followed by your audio apps the next day. So make sure you're subscribed free, Apple, Spotify, or subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/@TRB podcasts. And we have our pop culture podcast, Nerdy and Nice, which comes out on Mondays, which we talk about all the other cool stuff that we love to nerd out about. But it's time now to nerd out about Star Wars, Lacey. So did I miss anything, or do we want to get into rating these puppies?
I think unless you want to talk about merch, that's the only other thing.
Let's knock that out. We have trbpodcast.com. Lacey, take it away.
trbpodcast.com, like John just said, we have brand new merch, including our Galactic Goonies, the logo you saw at the beginning and throughout the show, as well as other things for TRB and Nerdy and Nice, all different types of designs. We just did a bunch of sales for Black Friday. We'll have sales over the course of the months to come, new items that are already designed and just waiting to go up. So stay tuned for that. But if you're looking for a cool Galactic Goonies shirt, you can only get it while the show is airing.
That is true. So you have to mid-January. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Let's get after it here. We did the Pedro Pascal face scale. We did the Ewan McGregor faces. Uh,
Mhm.
did Andor faces, Diego Luna's. We did Kalnaka's, and now it's time for the NEEL scale.
Mhm.
We rated each episode 1 to 10. We asked our patrons to do the same, and now we're gonna see what we scored the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew. Let's start with episode 1. Sets the table, sets the tone. We're gonna talk about it at length, but Lacey, what did you rate episode 1, which is called This Could Be a Real Adventure, directed by John Watts, written by John Watts and Chris Ford? What did you rate it on the NEEL scale, 1 to 10?
I gave this show an 8.5. This episode, sorry, not just show,
Woo-hoo!
episode. A solid start. It wasn't perfect. It's always hard to rate these because you don't know where the show is going. To unless, with me, with Luke Skywalker, or the Mandalorian show up, then I'm like, it's a 10. But it's hard to see where these are going, but I'm intrigued. There's so much to discuss. I'm in love with the characters already. The creatures, the droids, the world
Oh,
itself. I was in from the first like 2-3 minutes. I was in. I was hooked. So I'm giving it an 8.5.
very, very great score. 8.5 and
Mhm.
ups are usually, like, the top stuff that we've been rating, since we've been doing it with season 1 of The Mandalorian. I came in with an 8, so just under you there. The first episode of The Mandalorian also got an 8 for me, so just to measure out where I'm at.
Mhm.
But I thought it was essentially a prologue. I think the first episode quite literally ends with them blasting off into space. So everything that is prior to that is letting us understand who these kids are,
Mhm.
how each of them know the other ones,
Mhm.
setting the dynamic, but also giving a glimpse of what these kids are like at home, what they're like at school, really
Mhm.
establishing them enough. And I think that's okay if it wasn't that exciting of an episode because it allows us to get vested in their lives. So solid episode. Nothing that's going to be an all-timer, but it sets it off nicely so that the other episodes can benefit from that. So I'm going 8, and that puts the two of us at an 8.25 on the NEEL scale. If you're watching on YouTube, there he is. All the NEEL faces, they actually look like video game controllers when they're
I
lined up like
do.
that. But NEEL's awesome, and Robert, who plays him, is just as awesome. So that's 8.25. A great start for us out of the gate for
I'm just
episode
gonna leave
1.
him there on screen, by the way.
That's okay. I mean,
Okay,
it fits
cool.
nicely.
Mhm.
So we checked in with our patrons, and they rated it, and they averaged out to an 8.2 for episode 1. So right around where we are. So we're on
Mm.
the same page. We got a balance in the ratings. And then we will go to episode 2 now before we get to some comments. And Lacey, what did you give episode 2 of Skeleton Crew?
I gave episode 2 an 8.5. I thought it was also a solid episode, and I thought it was just at the same level of excitement, interest, intrigue, character development, etc., as the first one. So I gave it an 8.5. Not a 7, so Laura can't be mad at me. An 8.5.
Once Laura Kelly came on when we were doing Acco Night for the
Can't
Acolyte,
give 7s anymore.
she said sevens are a cop out. So I don't know if I'll be giving sevens anymore. But I didn't hear. I upped my score for episode 2 to an 8.5 because it just had more interesting elements to it. We leave Ad Adden, which is very earthy, and we go to the exact opposite, which is this dirty, grimy hellscape. This show's version of the Mos Eisley Cantina, just on steroids. A lot to look at, a lot of creatures, a lot of special effects, a lot of fights, action, adventure, humor. This episode, even though it was short, it was like 24 minutes or so. I feel like it packed a lot, and it has a lot of rewatchability because there's so much on screen that
Mhm.
I can rewatch this and divert my eyes to where they usually go and see something I didn't see the first time I watched it. And I might have watched these episodes of Skeleton Crew more repetition than I watched any of the previous Star Wars shows. So
I definitely did.
yeah,
Mando, I went back a bunch of times.
Mando, I did, yeah. But so far, these have a lot of rewatchability. So 8.5 for me, 8.5 for you. No surprise, that's 8.5 for us. And the TRB community also checked in with an 8.5. So across the board, high scores for episodes 1 and 2 of Skeleton Crew.
Nice. Should I just leave him up here?
Yeah, let's just leave Neil all day, every day.
Little boy.
Yeah. Now, I do know we have some comments, and then we're going to get to those super chats. So the first comments about why they gave their reviews. We have General Darth Snips, and she said, I think each episode is an 8.5 easily. I was smiling the whole time. Lots of fun background details and little nods to things we know and love. Can't wait to continue the adventure. And then we have Commander Jedi Big Geek, and he said, episode 1, 8 Neels. Episode 2, 8 Neels. I'm a product of the 80s, and the show brings me a huge amount of nostalgic joy to watch with my family. First episode was a great intro. The second episode really set the stage for what's to come. My only wish is it has a similar runtime to the first, which is fair. But good scores all around. We're in the 8s across the board, it seems. So Skeleton Crew off to a good start. I don't know if you saw, Lacey, the Rotten Tomatoes scores on both critic and audience were actually very
94
good.
and 88.
Yeah, so good sign for a franchise that's been taking some haymakers from critics or fans or both, one or the other. Hasn't been able to seem to get both, and this one looks like it might have, the way the early Mando seasons did. So great sign. And before we get into our contest and then our discussion, I know we have some super chats, so we got to get into those.
Yes. Come back later, buddy.
Bye, Neil.
Bye, Neil. See you in a little bit. First up is David Ford. Thank you so much for the super chat. He said, first episode, go away, kids, you bother me. Second episode, all right, them kids, I'm all in. Love the show so far. It's good to know.
Thanks, David.
Next up is Neil. What up, Neil? Thanks for the super chat, man. Neil's having the time of his life because he also shares his name with Neil. When this character was announced, it's his time. Neil said, as a Neil who can only find keychains in Neil, N-E-I-L, or Neil, N-E-A-L, variations growing up, the popularity in the name Neil is a long time coming. Neil Nation, love you guys so much. So show is everything I could have hoped for and more. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah,
thank you, Neil.
I agree. Neil is a highlight for sure. Next is Steven. Thanks so much, Steven. He said, just want to thank you the best. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
That's so sweet. Neil's back again. What up, Neil? He said, my face is a scale. Well, sort of. Could you imagine if we had Neil's face as the scale? Like the Neil scale, and it's just like...
I don't know if we can handle it. I don't know if we could either.
Next is Christy. Thank you so much, Christy. She said, I wanted to be a Goonie when I was a kid. I played the VHS so much it wore out. Now I get to be a Galactic Goonie. Dreams do come true. Love the intro, Lacey. Oh, thank you so much. So like, if we talk about like dream jobs, like ultimate dream jobs, it would be to cut trailers for movies. I've always loved doing that. I always joke that in The Holiday, when Cameron Diaz's character like cuts trailers for a living, I was like, oh, so she's living my life in a rom-com with Jude Law cutting trailers for a living. Like this is Lacey's dream. But yeah, thank you so much. That's why I enjoy doing those. So I'll have to put it online eventually because I never put the Acolyte one up. I got to do that too. I just failed. But thank you.
Anyways, you have failed.
I
for
have
the last
failed.
time. Just choke, Lacey.
I feel like I'm choking. By the way, I'm suffering from a cold, if you can't tell. So sorry for that.
Yeah. Did you take an extra dose before we went live?
I did. I took extra Sudafed. So John knows this because before we did Star Wars Explained, I took Sudafed, and then we did Nerdy and Nice right after. And as we're doing Nerdy and Nice, it's wearing off. So I go on a rant for like 20 minutes about the Grinch with Pharrell Williams. So sorry about that in advance. And then I took more Sudafed. So now I'm getting back into
Lacey's going to be flying mid-show. So get ready.
All right.
Let us get into it. That's the last one, right? Yeah, good.
Treasure hunt.
Time for the treasure hunt. So, as you know, one of the things we do when we cover Star Wars shows is a contest, season-long contest. So now we introduce to you the Galactic Goonies Treasure Hunt. It is a season-long giveaway contest. This time it's different. I will ask a trivia question every week, and having all the answers will be very important. But ye be warned. Don't share your answers with any other pirate, or they'll snipe you at the first chance they get. Keep the answers to yourselves. Keep track of the answers each week, because on the final episode of Galactic Goonies on January 15th, I'll reveal how to submit for a shot to win the Galactic Goonies treasure, which includes the grand prize, Lego Star Wars Skeleton Crew Onyx Cinder spaceship, and some Galactic Goonies merch and other cool stuff. So the first question is, and some of these might be easy, so the point of it is later on in the journey, trust me. The first question is, what is the name of the Shistavinin, aka the werewolf pirate, in Skeleton Crew? And there you go. Away we go. We're off on the treasure hunt. The first one is away. Keep your answers safe, keep it secure, keep it to yourself. It'll probably be said dozens of times on this episode, but either way, you know it and you got it. So good luck to everybody. And like I said, ye be warned, do not share with other pirates. Arr. All right.
It's not on there either because I don't have a picture of it, but in the bounty as well is a limited edition Skeleton Crew pirate flag that was sent to me. I am putting that into the bounty.
Very good. Very good. All right, let's get into this spoiler breakdown discussion of this episode. We're not going to do any like a chronological walkthrough necessarily, but we are going to bounce around and talk about all the things that interest us, whether it's Easter eggs, story elements, speculation, all that good fun. But we always have to warm up the engines a bit, and we do that by talking about our favorite moment, shot, dialogue, just to get things going here. So Lacey, did you have a favorite particular moment from, let's do one total for both episodes maybe to keep it simple, or did you have one for each you wanted to talk about?
I only have the one because I figured you were going to give me a hard time and say to pick one.
Yes. And that's fine because really
I know you well. I know you would have been like,
you do.
Pick one.
You do. But really it is sort of like one episode, with the first one setting the tone, the second one picking it up. But yeah, so out of the two episodes, did you have a favorite moment, line, shot? Usually you're a shot person. I know
I
that.
am a shot person, and a shot is kind of wrapped up into this. It was the reveal in the beginning section of episode 1 where Wim comes around the corner and sees Neel facing away from him, and they do the Western shot by his hand, and then they do the push shot into Neel when he turns around. He's like, you shouldn't have come. Like, it's just that whole sequence brought me right back to my childhood of playing games in my backyard, pretending I'm on missions for Leia, like having these epic battles with friends and my sisters, and talking to myself about like, oh, you shouldn't have been here. Oh no, I'm gonna come for you type stuff. And it's really wonderfully shot. And I love how then you get they quickly remind you that they're kids when he's like, oh no, I have something in my eye. I think it's an eyelash. And then it like breaks the moment even more when the girl's like, what are you doing? Like, it's just so many comedic beats. And going into the series, that was something you and I spoke a lot about, John, was that we needed more humor in Star Wars, more funny moments. And this show has so many of them that just had me laughing.
Yes, I completely agree. The humor is back in a huge way. I think it's been missing, and it really, and it's Star Wars has a very signature type of humor, and I feel like John Watts and Chris Ford knew how to walk that line pretty well. But yeah, that's a great pick, and it got me thinking, like kids in the Star Wars galaxy should be pretending to be Jedi and stuff like that, because it's like when we were kids, we would play soldiers or whatever, and it's like, there are real things in your real world that you emulate when you're a kid. So it doesn't like take you out of it. Like those kids should be playing with their version of like army figures or whatever. So
Yeah, also he has all these tales in his little flipping
mhm.
data bank book type
It's
thing, which
yeah.
is so cool. Someone brought it up on Star Wars Explained that it reminded them of a Viewmaster because of the clicking noise, which I found very, very satisfying for some reason. But when the father brings up, "Oh, those are just bedtime stories," like, "Aren't you a little old for bedtime stories?"
Oh,
It's the
what a
same thing
jerk.
that I know, we'll get into it. But that's the same thing is that bedtime stories, heroes, fantastical journeys, magical tales, all those things that we grew up with, they also grow up. It's
Mhm.
being mirrored back to us of what it's like to be a kid again.
Yeah, I agree. Um, my favorite moment just made me laugh a lot, and I don't know why. It's probably a throwaway line, but it really busted me up, and I still just love it. Is when the kids are about to go to leave the ship and float across to the actual Port Borgo Bay,
Mhm.
and the door opens, and there's the little teak there, and SM-33 goes, "This wee ferryman will take you across the way." I was like, "Oh my god, wee ferryman." That absolutely killed me. I don't know why. I just love that delivery, the word choices, and then you see the little teak, and it's this little puppet, and he's like begging for money, and he's fidgety, and he scurries away like the original Alien in Ridley Scott's Alien movie.
Mhm.
And I know Phil Tippett was back for the show, and he's actually out promoting it, and he's excited to be back. And I can't help but wonder if he was a part of that particular creature. But
Mhm.
it just really felt old school Star Wars to me from that perspective, and it led us right. It was like the perfect introduction to when Star Wars takes you into a cantina for the first time, or Maz's castle or whatever. There's always that one first thing where you're like, oh, it's going to be like this. And you see that little teak, which is obviously old school non-canon stuff, or maybe it's canon, I don't know, from the Ewok adventures.
Mhm.
And it's just so animated, it's so practical, it's so real. And the fact that he called him a wee ferryman just killed me. So I was like so locked in at that point. I laughed really hard, and I haven't laughed that hard watching Star Wars in a while. So it was really, I knew, I was like, all right, this is gonna be cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we got our favorite moments out of the way. Let's dive into this. I don't even know really where to start, but I mean, we could obviously start with the kids and what they're all about and their relationships. Did you have a particular character? Obviously, Neil's very popular. That you were
Neil's an easy one to like, I think.
very
I
easy to
think
like.
he's adorable, he's cute, he feels like, he's shy, a little bit of an outsider. He seemingly doesn't have any flaws right now. So he's the very easy character to like, and I get it. I love him. But I think a lot of people jump to that character just because he's so adorable, just like Baby Yoda, Grogu, etc. Um, I kind of feel for Fern. We talked about this again a little bit before on Star Wars Explained, but Fern for me, while I've felt like Neil a lot as a child growing up, being that kind of like outsider, am I doing everything right? Whatever. I've grown up into being someone that tends to rebel when I feel like I'm being held to a certain expectation. But at the same time, knowing I'm not that much of a badass. Like at the end of the day, I still take my jacket off and tell the droid that I was upstairs doing my homework. Like I'm not that tough, but I like to act tough sometimes. But I will say that I'm not a liar like Fern, because Fern is very much like Buzz from Home Alone, where he's just like, the guy next door is going to chop you up and put you in the ice bucket. And, oh, did you hear what they do? They take kids downstairs and do all these things. Like that whole line of her having the kids working in the mines immediately took me back to Home Alone. Or like
Yeah.
older siblings that make stuff up.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my 6-year-old does that to my 3-year-old.
He
You know,
does?
well, because he is actually more scared of things than she is,
Uh-huh.
but
'Cause he's,
he
like, older enough to, like, wake up to the reality of it?
yeah, like some of the rides at Disney or whatever, but he will try to assert a false sense of no fear by
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, Daisy, you should be afraid of this," when really he's afraid. So
Mm.
that's how kids are, and I think that's one of the strengths of this show so far. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on understanding kids. Being a parent doesn't make you an expert at anything. But
No, it does not. And it
I
doesn't
do
prepare you for anything.
I do find myself tuning more into my how I was as a child as I experience my kids doing
Mhm,
things, whether it's I
mhm.
remember something or I see it through their point of view. And I think they really did nail the spirit of what it's like to be a kid. And there's a pureness and innocence to all these kids, including the actors. They feel very genuine from the moment we saw them on stage at Celebration to
I mean, you spoke to them.
yeah, to when we spoke to them on the round table. I loved their answers. I asked them what they thought um, made their character a good friend, and they all gave wonderful answers. But I think this is Wim's. He's the main protagonist of this story.
Yeah.
Neil is obviously a supporting character, but I really love how earnest and genuine Neil is, and he's kids like to bust each other's chops a lot, especially little kids in middle school or high grammar school or whatever. And
Mhm.
he's just like, Wim, he's like, you're gonna do great tomorrow, buddy. Don't worry about it. And like Wim is, I'm not saying he has negative thoughts, but the whole time he's sitting in his house, every sentence his dad spoke to him was, "Why'd you leave your toys out? Did you take my key card?
Oh
Make
my
sure
god, he
you're up
was
for school."
such a jerk.
It's not even like it's just like over-parenting and like, when's the moment where he's like, "Hey, I love you, buddy," or whatever? It's just constantly like he loves him, but his way of showing love is by making sure he's doing what he needs to do.
You know what I think this is, honestly,
Like a
is,
military
when Leia and Han default to back to what they know best. I think that we don't know this yet. This has not come up at all, but I feel like it's gonna get there, is, when they finally talk about his mom and what happened to his mom, the
Mhm,
dad's gonna reveal that he fell back into work because that's what he knew best.
mhm.
And every time he
Yeah.
sees Wim reminds him of his mother, so he has this feeling of like, I can't do this today," because he feels the pressure of having to raise a kid by himself. Who knows what work is like? What we've seen in the trailers, he looks really annoyed at work all the time, so
Oh, yeah.
and he's staying late, he's doing all these reviews, um, I think that's where it's coming from. Now, that doesn't excuse him being a total jerk to Wim all the time, and, like, especially when Wim asks him to read him a book. I whenever if my kids ask me when they're in high school if they wanna read a book together, I'm reading the book. Like, I don't understand that point of why he would do that to his son, but I think also you needed him to do that to push Wim to do what he wants to do. If his dad was Neil's dad, who was supportive, saying, "I love you, Neil," he would never have the want to leave.
Yeah.
Neil doesn't wanna leave.
No, he doesn't. He's a homebody. Yeah.
Right.
I agree with that. Like, I think Wim's dad is a look into Wim's future if he takes the test, if he passes the test, if he becomes an analyst, he
Yeah.
would be living the same life his dad lived. And where does that get you? Sad, jaded, disconnected. And I'm not saying Wim sees that, but there's something inside Wim that has him yearning, and
Wanting
it could
more. Yeah.
it could simply be, just not feeling fulfilled and feeling like he's being told what he needs to do versus like, hey, go, pursue where your heart's steering you, you know? So I think that is a part of that first episode, which it's not the most action packed at all, but it's so important because we're understanding why Wim is the way he is, why Neil is the way he is. And then on the other side, you have the other pairing of friends, KB and Fern. And Fern, we're just like, we're introduced to her like she's some street racing little troublemaker. And she does get herself into trouble, but it turns out she's top of her class. Her mom is the undersecretary,
Mhm.
making sure that the students are falling in line and wanting to be analysts and data
Mhm.
analysts and whatever supervisors or whatever, because she really grills the heck out of Wim when she sees him doodling a Jedi on his etch a sketch. She calls on him and says, "What about you?"
Not just
And
calls, snaps.
yeah, and she
You.
had points. I'm like,
Yeah.
"You, what do you want to be?" And he's like, "I want to
Yeah.
help people." And the droid like speaks up like, actually, that's my job. So you're not going to be helping anybody. And he's like, oh. And then the girl laughs at him behind him like it's a ridiculous thought to help
Yeah.
people. So these kids are conditioned to like minimize their humanity and dedicate themselves to whatever this cause is that adults probably don't care about. Look at Wim's dad, let alone kids.
Yeah.
Like the hearing a kid laugh at, I want to help people. I don't know what that is, but I want to help people. And then another kid saying, I want to be an analyst. It's like,
Mm.
what happened to these kids? They lost any sense of dreaming, yearning.
Curiosity.
Yeah, it's all gone. So what is happening here on this planet for that reason? And Fern's mom is pushing her to rebel. She's a great student. She is head of her class. Her
She's like the
mom's
stage mom.
yeah,
Yeah.
her mom's like has a high level job, and she's still finding herself rebelling because she's probably feels like she's getting like formed out of clay. And then KB's
Yeah.
more of like the Neil for Fern, which is her support, but in a different way than Neil is for Wim.
Yeah, it does draw a lot of parallels from other stories, young adult childhood stories like The Giver or Divergent was a more recent version.
Mm-hmm.
For people that don't know, it's a YA book that came out around the time of the Hunger Games. It was dystopian America, Chicago. The idea is that there's factions that people live in. And you grow up with your family. And then when you hit your certain birth date, I think it's like 14, 15, maybe it's 16, you go take a test, and that test determines what faction you're in. Now, you might remain with your family, you might not. You go live with those other people, and they're based on like truth and honesty and whatever. And that very much, the whole test scheme reminded me very much of that, of like, these kids can barely decide what they're doing tomorrow, let alone what they're doing for the rest of their life. Now, don't even get me started on standardized testing. I hate that. I was never a good test taker growing up, and clearly neither is Wim. So it's like, what kids get lost in the bigger scheme of things when you drive them into this, you got to take this test to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
But then it also had me, like you are getting into now, John, is like questioning, what are they doing on this planet?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
they're constantly talking about money, currency, uh, the proctor will see you now. No, they won't. They never show the proctor, who's like the principal, I guess. The droids are the cops. Like, there's no actual people. Um, it's it's like this perfect facade that's hiding something, I think, a little bit more darker, a little more sinister. And I know initially you and I discussed on a regular episode of TRB about how people were kind of turned off by the whole suburbia thing of seeing it in space. Like, this isn't Star Wars to me. But I think the thing is that it's supposed to juxtapose what is actually happening there, which to me, they're clearly either managing money, mining money, doing something with money. The question is, where's that money going? What are your thoughts, John? Do you think that they're doing something with money here? Like, because it seems like they're only, like, even the droid at the beginning of the episode was like, oh, and other planets, we talk about other currencies. Like, these kids are like in 5th grade. Why are they talking about currencies?
Yeah, so it's like, I don't want to get too real world on it, but it's like,
Yeah.
if Wim's dad gives him a bunch of credits and he's like, this is your lunch money for the week. In a few minutes in the next episode, we find out that people are willing to murder people for one of those. And here on this planet, it's lunch money that he's tossing on the kitchen counter. And he's tossing like 8 of them
Yeah,
for a
for
week.
the week.
For a
Yeah.
week's worth of kid lunches.
Yeah.
It's like $1.99 or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my point is, he gives him the money, the kid spends it on lunch. It gets worked back through the system anyway, because it seems like this is all one corporation that runs this planet and this great work. Everyone works for the same cause. So the money gets filtered through anyway. So it's like fake currency anyway. And then we find out how valuable it truly is outside of this planet. But it's like, I don't know why. When I watched this, I was thinking about the Truman Show and how Truman, from birth, just like these kids, because these kids are born around the time of the end of the empire,
Mm-hmm.
he's brought up like conditioned to not ever want to leave. his planet or
Mhm.
his town, I should say.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
he knows about Fiji. He sees it on a map and he's like, I'm going to go there. But they teach him to be afraid of water, so he doesn't want to go in the oceans. They teach him to be afraid of detachment. They teach him abandonment issues. All these things to condition him to be afraid to leave his town. Grab
Mhm.
your briefcase, go to your fake job, go back home to your fake wife. You go to sleep. You don't know any better. You live a
Have a
happy
good
life.
life.
That's
Yeah.
what Ad Adden feels like to me. You know, you're doing the great work, and look at his dad. He's just doing his job, and like, what is it all going to mean for him? He's wasting his life. And
Mhm.
then, like, Wim is like Truman. He's like, oh, I want to go explore. He's looking at Jedi stuff. He's playing with Jedi toys. He's got his friend Neil doing lightsaber stuff, but nobody else is talking about Jedi or lightsabers or anything like that.
They
He's
look at
the
him like he's weird.
Yeah, he's laughed at for being this weird, imaginative little yearner. He's odd, he's strange, and that's why she pointed him out. So there is something being kept internal. Nothing can, like I said, no ships can come in, no ships can leave. It's this utopian communistish feeling, like we're all in it for the great work, and you use that word work a lot, and it reminds
The
me of like,
great work specifically for the
yeah, yeah,
Republic.
and
But the question yeah.
you're gonna be an analyst, so you're gonna make this much money because you passed that test. It's very like it's its own empire, post empire, and the only difference is instead of the Galactic Empire, which would just kill you to grow itself, this is you're essentially going to be a part of this matrix, and you're going to live your life and do what you need to do because it's for this other cause that we are controlling. So it seems like this happy, nice suburban. You got the Athorian walking the pet thing, but really these people are in a sort of revolving simulation of generations.
I
What they're
mean, it's a
doing,
cage. They
we
have to
don't
go to
know.
school, then the school's all watched. Then
Yeah,
they sit down, they're telling them what to do. They can't go in the woods, they can't go here, you have to be here at this time, you can't do this. It is noticeable though, at the beginning of the series, they talk about how the empire's fallen and the new republic is trying to bring peace to the galaxy or is trying to manage, but pirates are taking over. And we talk
you maintained order, it says. Yeah.
right. But at Adden, Fern's mother says we work for the Republic, not the new Republic,
Hmm.
which is interesting because in every other Star Wars property, show, TV show, book, whatever, movie, they specify Republic versus New Republic.
Right.
And she very clearly says Republic. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I think there was something about this planet that was either unrecognized or untapped by the Galactic Empire. Um,
Mhm,
those Detaries being the currency,
mhm.
it's
Okay.
the money that was being used around the time of the pre-Empire Republic. Yeah, so it's got the Republic logo, which sort of became the Empire logo because the Republic became the Empire.
Mhm,
Um, so I'm wondering if in the greater galaxy beyond Ad Adden, we see these just dirtbag pirates at a drop of a hat willing to kill each other for one of those things. The level, and they're trying to bust in vaults, which we have to talk about that opening scene with the pirates too. But busting open that vault for these, like the value of these credits are way more than they used to be, which makes me think, did the Empire liquidate these as currency? Because they had Imperial credits during the
mhm,
Galactic Empire's run.
mhm.
Watto wanted nothing to do with these credits when Qui-Gon was trying to get the hyperdrive fixed with them. So my thinking is Ad Adden still has a lot of these because the Empire didn't get to this planet somehow.
Well,
That's
'cause
my
it's been missing.
Yeah, that's my guess. So um I will find out more, I'm sure. But clearly these kids blasting off at the end of this first episode is a big problem because they don't know how to handle it because nobody leaves the barrier or whatever.
Which they
Um
teach them about the barrier. They're like,
yeah.
"The barrier is good, out beyond the barrier," the droid says at the beginning, "Out beyond the
Truman
barrier."
Show. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. So to
Kinda
to
Moana too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
they told her, yeah, to be afraid of the water, and her grandma's like, "No, you gotta go have some fun,
Explore.
get
Yeah.
your feet wet." Yeah. But the kids, to wrap up my thought on the kids, once the 4 of them get together, I mean, there's other fun, like, Easter eggs and stuff, like the American Graffiti reference to Harrison Ford's character. The kid rolls up looking like Ben Solo, and he's named after Harrison Ford's character, Falfa. Essentially saying the same thing, taunting about a race, so that was a cool nod to George Lucas and, one of his first movies.
Can I
Um,
say my favorite Easter egg?
yeah.
Inside of Neil's garage is a St. Pauli's girl sign that is
Yeah, yeah.
his creature is like holding the two pictures and made me laugh.
It's a classic dad garage. Yeah.
Dad garage item that like
Yeah.
the mom was just like, just put it in the garage.
Yeah. It's not going in our house, put it in the garage.
I just
Yeah.
love it. And obviously the big thing from the holiday special, they had the people with the circus, which I love those Neil's siblings puppets. Oh
Yeah.
my god, the
They were
puppetry work.
great. Very
It's
good.
Tulu, Jorko, Jorbo, I
Jorko,
believe.
Jobo, and Baby Tulu. Yeah.
Oh my god, they're so cute. I
They
just
are.
and then the little motion of like, "Where's Neil?" And he's just
Mhm.
I love
And
it.
then he's in a bubble bath.
Yeah.
What a setup with the skylight.
Those
Like,
houses are beautiful, mid-modern,
yeah,
mid-century,
the tub of
beautiful.
dreams. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the funny thing too is they look very much out of like, I don't know what, the any type of movie that's like, what if America lost this war? Like they always look like that. It's always
Yeah.
like these like beautiful all American homes.
Yes. Yeah, and I think because of, like, they're showing us, like, they're not just gonna put Neil in a bubble bath for the heck of it. They're showing, like, how much he loves his life. Like, the kid gets home from school and he's taking a bubble bath, and his family greets him at the door. He loves his friends so much. "You're gonna do great in school tomorrow, buddy." Neil is exactly where he wants to be, and he's completely content with his station life. So I think ultimately this show is going to whim, and his risk taking is going to benefit Neil more than Neil could benefit.
Really? I
Yeah,
think it
whim.
could go bad with Neil. I
I don't
think
think
he could
so.
ultimately be hardened by this trip.
I think this show, if it's gonna stay a limited series, like, these kids are all gonna come out of it better off, and they're gonna end up being close friends and that sort of
I hope
thing.
so. I
And
hope
it's
so.
like Stand By Me. You got the one nerdy kid, the Jerry O'Connell kid before he turned into this, like, massive stud in the '90s. He's he's like, "I don't know, guys, if we should do that." And it's like he
Mhm.
finally gets his hands dirty and he goes on this adventure with his friends and it changes his life
It's
forever.
like
And it's
Chunk.
yeah, exactly. Chunk from
Mhm.
Goonies. So, like, it's an archetype, and that's clearly the path I think Neil's gonna go on. And even in the trailer, I think he like gets behind the wheel and he's like going to be piloting. So he's going to be tested quite a bit.
I
Uh,
think there's gonna be a moment at towards the end where he's at home and they're gonna go back to school or whatever after this big adventure, and he's gonna come home and his mom's gonna be like, "Okay, time for a bath." He goes, "You know what? I'm gonna skip the bath tonight." And that's like the big kinda like, "Oh, he's skipping the bath." Like,
yeah,
"Ooh."
no bath for me, mom. Yeah,
Mhm.
he doesn't take his shoes off when he comes in. He's got a little edge on him, but in a good way. You gotta, you can't be a mama's boy forever, I guess, Neil. But
Mm.
although I
Mhm.
am at times still. So, but can we talk about the opening scene?
Yes, we have not talked about that yet.
All right. So what was your first reaction when those cannons, those tunnels ram into the side of the ship and all of a sudden the tunnel opens and we see with a werewolf? Like what was your first, were you like, "Whoa," were you expecting that
I thought
madness?
I wasn't. I thought it was gonna kick off with them on Ad Adden. So to kick it off with the pirates was great because it set the risk level and how dangerous this world, this industry is for these kids to be in. It's not like a fun fairy tale. It's, hey, you're getting into like real dark stuff. And plus a lot of these guys we've seen in The Mandalorian, so we know what they're capable of.
Mhm.
For me, the thing that stuck out at the beginning is that that character looked very much like the bully character, Tambor and Young Jedi Adventures, like the helmet looked like
Captain
his.
Silvo?
Yeah, Captain, which Captain Silvo, Long John Silver, very similar to me. Like you see these little nods to pirates here and
Yep.
there. Also, you and I can completely agree that that's definitely Jod. 100% that's Jod.
It's Jude Law. Yeah.
And the whole beginning for me was just like, as someone that loves Pirates of the Caribbean, especially Black Pearl, I was like, oh, so he's like the Jack Sparrow. He promised some big thing, lied his way into this situation, didn't deliver, they mutiny, and now he's got to battle his way back to becoming the captain again.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Because that explains why when we find him, and we'll get to that later, in jail in the second episode at a pirate's port, you're like, oh, so he didn't survive that mutiny. Okay. But yeah, I thought that opening scene was a unapologetic homage to the opening of A New Hope in so many ways. It
That was a good call.
starts off with a shot in space. They pan down, and then you see the ship coming into frame, and it gets bigger and bigger, just like the Star Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
Then they board the ship. You see the dude almost shot for shot. If you take the rebel soldier who's doing this job in A New Hope, pointing the blaster forward, and he looks up and around hearing the creaking of the ship, exactly a tribute to that moment in A New Hope before the stormtroopers blast the door and Darth Vader walks
100%.
in.
Mm-hmm.
And then Silva walks up to the guy and gives him the Vader business. So he grabs the guy by the throat like Vader did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in A New Hope, he goes, if this is a consular ship, we haven't intercepted any transmission. He's like, if this is a consular ship, where's the ambassador? And he slams the guy, breaks his neck. In this one, he goes, we're a bulk freighter. And he's like, if this is a bulk freighter, why do you have a magnetically sealed vault? And then he chokes that guy. So it's like, John Watts and Chris Ford were like, we grew up in A New Hope. It changed our lives. We got to do our tribute to that, to kick this thing off, to let people know we love Star Wars. We're not trying to do a carbon copy. We just want to do our version, but it's pirates instead of the Empire. And I was all for it. I thought the music, the little pirates theme, the Mick Giacchino.
Give him the keys. Killed it. Knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
Oh my God. He was great. He sounds a little bit like his dad's style, but different. I loved his penguin stuff. You could tell that he could do different things based on the certain situation. But there's some themes, we'll get to them later. One moment that really just hit me in the chest that he did, that I knew he was going to be good. But that whole opening scene, and Brutus, the werewolf, and I know you're probably a little pissed that he was speaking basic, but
I'm not okay. No, I don't mind if some of them speak basic.
No,
I'm saying when you go to basically the Tortuga of space and all the creatures are speaking basic in English, I understand you do that so that kids watching can understand what they're saying. But as we discussed previously, Chewie never spoke English and everybody knew what he was saying. So they could have done this. I just wish that not every single creature was speaking basic.
I get that. Yeah, that's a nitpick that I'm with you on that. Yeah. Because in the original movies, there was like, and you're like, no idea what he said, and you didn't need to know sometimes, you know. But yeah, there's a little bit too much of that, and I get that. But overall, that opening scene, I agree with you. It set the tone of the danger first. So then when we go back and we spend most of the episode with the kids, knowing what they're going to get into because of the trailers and stuff, you're like, wow, look at how these simple problems that they think are big on their home planet are nothing compared to what they're about to experience. And then they find the ship, they blast off, they hit the button, and away they go. So I thought overall the first episode was a real solid start. It had me so excited for the second. And I know people had issue with how short the second episode is, but to me it felt like a very full 24 minutes.
It was very action-packed, yes.
It didn't spare any frames. I feel like
I don't think it did.
From soup to nuts, I thought it was just really good. And SM-33, like Nick Frost, like I had some concerns where I'm like, he looks kind of like a K2SO. Like, how are they going to make a unique droid? And they're like, we're going full pirate. Full pirate. Got the one eye, got the peg leg, got the little creature popping out of it.
It's like a parrot, yeah.
And his voice with his accent, how gruff it is. Very cool. And he also there's a lot of humor to that droid too, because in the similar way where like C3PO doesn't understand sarcasm,
Mhm.
uh he doesn't either. He's like, well, the ship's still alive, so that means there must be a captain. And he's like, captain, captain, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is so good. They
Mhm.
did such a good job writing the humor into this show.
They did.
Oh,
I loved that it didn't the whole show doesn't take itself too seriously. It
no.
keeps reminding you this is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be laughing. You're supposed to be entertained and smiling and having a good time. Like this isn't going to change your life. It might, but it doesn't have to. You could just come along for the journey, which
Yeah.
I am all in on.
Yeah, and like they do play that fun a lot in subtle ways, and one that stood out to me was, the whole time leading up to, I don't know if I think it must have been the end of the first episode when they power up the ship,
Mhm.
and KB is clearly the tech or the Spock or like the smart
Data.
one. Yeah,
Mhm.
Data. Um, and she's like, all right, well, if this conduit feeds here, oh, it's downstairs. And then she goes through this whole hubbub of understanding how the ship works. And to turn it on, she bangs a pipe with bangs like something with a pipe, and everything turns on. I'm like, that is so Star Wars. Han Solo elbowing the frame of the door of the Millennium Falcon
Mhm.
cockpit so the lights turn back on.
Mhm.
Fonzie elbowing the jukebox to make it play. This is
Mhm.
all very George Lucasy stuff, and they got those subtleties. It was so good because it's so funny that she's this technical wizard genius. She's got a little Apple eye
Visor.
visor thing, her Meta
Google
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah, but all it took for it, in the end, it took her banging something with a pipe for the ship to turn on. I thought that was such a good moment, so subtle, so awesome. And I was like, I knew that these guys got it. So I mean, I can't say enough about how good they do the humor from a physical humor standpoint to dialogue. Because, like I said, the whole ferryman line would just killed me, and seeing that little creature begging for the money in a different language, scurrying off like the
Mhm.
alien in Ridley Scott's Alien,
Mhm.
just so well done. And I thought Port Borgo was just like a fun place to visit. I felt like the way they
So
shot it
awesome.
was very point of view, and I could be wrong, but I feel like some of the angles they took were from the vantage point of a kid's height, so everything looked a bit more
Yeah.
intimidating. That was
Mhm.
a great choice there as well by David Lowery, I think, directed the second episode, and he's going to be directing the third. And of course, you have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni executive producing. So this show had a lot of support
Guiding the
behind it.
ship, so to speak.
And we're back to a show that was filmed using the volume, and I didn't hear anybody talking about the volume when they were talking about having watched this show. Whereas
No.
other shows, it's brought up. People brought it up with Ahsoka. People brought it up with Obi-Wan a lot. Some with Mando, depending on the episodes. I
Mhm.
haven't heard anyone say anything about the volume with this show because I think they used it in the best way possible. Because there was so much
They
stuff
really did.
chewing up the scenery with props, creatures, settings. It's rich on the forefront of the screen that they can get away with some of the things they do with the volume. I thought this show looked great.
Yeah, it did. It was just so I know you say warm and inviting a lot, but it's true. It had this, like, very kind of childlike, familiar feeling, especially on Ad Adden, of, like, just, like, exploring. It's summer, you're outside, we're about to go on, like, some type of adventure, and then it gets a little darker in Port Borgo, and it's, kind of, like, dirty and gross, but, like,
Mhm,
interesting. The colors are bright. Like, I'm so happy about how bright this show is, and I'm not squinting to see things.
mhm. Yeah.
Um but I will admit that it did get a little dark towards the end of episode 2, and that's when we finally meet Jod. So what was your first impression of him?
I mean, I've always liked Jude Law. He's always had a natural charisma where he
Mhm.
can carry a scene, and whether it's in like Talented Mr. Ripley or something like The Holiday, which I just started watching for the first time the other day because
Holiday is so good.
I'm running out of Christmas movies. Though, how many times can I watch Home Alone?
It's one
You
of my
know?
it's my favorite. I have to watch it every year. It's
Yeah,
so good.
I gotta finish it. I started it too late one night, but anyway, he's really good, and Just based on what John Watts and Chris Ford were saying about him, I did, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I did get to ask them that question on, did they have something in mind for Jod before casting Jude Law, or did they write the character around Jude Law? What were the inspirations? Because this is a throwback show to Amblin, so was the character a throwback? And they threw it back further. They said they based it on him on Errol Flynn in old pirate swashbuckling serials and stuff like that, which again, right out of the idea bowl of George Lucas and how Buck Rogers and those Flash Gordon serials inspired Star Wars. It's like you have there's precious serious Star Wars like Andor, and we got that coming up this spring, but then there's the organic core of what Star Wars is, which is really just a tribute to things that George Lucas loved watching when he was a boy, that made him use his imagination. And I think that's what John Watts and Chris Ford were tapping into here, because not only did Star Wars inspire them, because now you're talking about telling a story about something that inspired you, about something that inspired the guy who inspired you. And it's just like, okay, we're going all the way back. And the fact that they said Errol Flynn, I was like, oh my God, I know of that name, but geez, these guys did their homework big time.
They definitely did.
I enjoy the character. I mean, we only get a small bit of him. Obviously, we get a lot more in episode 3. We're not going to talk about that. But it delivered one of my favorite moments of both episodes, which was the key and the movement of the key, and mainly the music. People keep focusing on the hints of the Force theme, and I did too, but something about the part right before the Force theme, when the key first starts really moving, is an original new theme for this. I don't know if it's Force related. I don't know if it's really about the kids, or if this is like Jod's theme, because that moment of music like kicked me in the chest. It was very emotional. It's powerful. It feels epic, and it was just like a tease. So I think it's sort of like a hint of a larger version of this theme. John Williams does that a lot. He'll sprinkle something and then he'll hit you with a grander version of it later. Christopher Nolan did that with Hans Zimmer in the Batman Begins. Eventually, when the big moment hits, that big theme's going to hit. So I'm going to pay attention to that theme moving forward to see if we hear it surrounding Jod a bit more. He's an interesting character. I don't know what to make of him. I hope he doesn't end up stabbing these kids in the back.
I think he's going to be like a Mando character that might start off with ill intentions, but then when the moment comes, he's going to do the right thing. I think they're pretty much saying that in the marketing when he's like, am I good? Am I bad? And it's like, yeah, you're fine.
The only question, which I agree, out of episode 2 is like, well, if he could have done that the whole time, why didn't he? And that's going to be a question heading into episode 3 for sure. But yeah, I think ultimately this show will live or die by how they build up the bond with the kids, just as the 4 of them. And if we buy into the relationship between the kids and Jod.
I think also exploring the mysteries. That's important.
Yeah. For me, though, it's always about the characters.
Sure.
Ad Adden, Ad Schmadden. You know what I mean?
I guess so.
No, but it is like that. That's another part. It's so funny because Acolyte, you and I spent every week playing detective when there was nothing to solve.
Like a red string.
There was nothing to solve.
But did we have fun doing that?
We had a blast.
We
did.
I
had so much fun talking about it.
We did.
One of my least favorite of the Star Wars shows. I still like it because it's Star Wars. But I think I had the most fun talking about it. And now this show comes at us. We're not expecting a mystery. And they're like, boom, you have a lot of questions after watching these first 2 episodes.
I have more questions about this show than I did with The Acolyte.
And I love it. I am so excited that that's another added element to this. But man, Port Borgo, so cool. The action, the fights, the kids getting in trouble. It has the cantina scene. It is sort of the cantina, but it's unique and different in its own way because they have like adult nightclubs, and the kids, like Fern's able to sort of recognize that. She's like, we should go away.
We shouldn't be here.
Yeah, we shouldn't be here.
Well, she is the leader of the class. Like they make that very clear at the beginning, like, top of her class. So she's going to step up and be the leader when she needs to be.
And she has the skills that the others may not have yet, because I think when she convinced SM33 that she was the captain. I'm the captain now. I killed your captain. I threw him out.
Which she did with her own droid.
Exactly.
So I think she just has experience doing it.
They showed us she already has all that. She was like, she's ready to do this. This isn't. She's trying it on a bigger stage, but she has all of this already. Like she's got it. Where the other kids are still got to figure a lot out.
Right.
Especially Wim, because he's the biggest dreamer. Like he's the one who's like gonna drift
off. Is this who I think it is? Is this who I think it is?
Do we have the co-writer and co-creator of Skeleton Crew in the chat on Galactic Goonies right now?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But
answer our questions, Christopher, if it is you. We have a lot of questions about Ad Adden or Ad Adden.
So Christopher Ford's in the.
Okay, Chris, we have a lot of questions.
So wait, Chris Ford. Okay. So Chris Ford's in. So for our audio listeners, the co-creator and co-writer of Skeleton Crew is in our chat right now, saying no spoilers, but
You're
also saying
us,
that the force flows through us all. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Chris Ford, for hopping in. This is amazing. This is incredible. I don't even know what else to say. This is awesome.
We love the show. We're obsessed with it, obviously.
Oh, if he was here for the early part of the show and saw the NEEL scale, Lacey could probably put it up on screen.
I should put it up.
Scores through the roof for episodes 1 and 2.
NEEL scale
8.5 out of 10. I think we've only given 110 on this show, and it was for Luke Skywalker returning. So thanks, buddy.
Of course, come back every week, Chris.
Yes,
see if we're right about
our.
It must be the best to be in his position because he knows the story, and we're sitting here and we're talking about what we like and what we don't like, and like what could happen. And he's sitting here like, yeah, you don't even know what's coming, and then he gets to laugh when we're like so off base. I love that.
But I wonder, like Chris, he's sitting there. There's all this hype going on. He's like probably get family members texting him like, dude, you crushed it. I can't believe it. And then he's like, let me check out this Star Wars podcast right now.
He says, cheers. Don't want to interrupt, but I'm cackling.
Yeah. So he's on his couch right now. He's like,
Chris, once this is all said and done, once this show's in the past, please come on the show. We would love to have you.
You gotta come on the show and hang out. Oh my God. Let's do it.
But please enjoy cackling. You're not interrupting. We love chatting.
Cheers. Cheers. And thank you for being so awesome. Appreciate that.
But awesome. Like imagine being in that position. You just get to be like, they have no idea what they're talking about. No.
Oh yeah.
You have no
power.
idea.
Unlimited power. Chris Ford has unlimited power right now.
Awesome.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. We'll chat later. But until then,
can you keep a secret? Like literally the line at the end of the second episode. No, but back to Jude Law. I think you can't really miss with him when it comes to charisma. So that out of the gate, you're getting. And you can't write a character for Jude Law and not give him that. Mm-hmm. So they did, and he gets to run with it. And like we only got to see snippets of him sort of being like this mangy under the hood, and then at the beginning of the first episode, he's under a mask. Like he has not even been unleashed.
What an epic reveal, though!
It was very Obi-Wan, like a new.
It was very Obi-Wan. Mark Hamill in the Force Awakens.
I think Obi-Wan, because I think these guys are old school. Yeah,
that's true. But like, that's what you dream of when you get into Star Wars. Like, you want that shadowy figure reveal of like, this is who I am. And after the series is over, when we go back, we're going to be like, there he is, because he has that huge reveal. It's just so good. And the music is perfect. Mick Giacchino does like such a good job.
Man, those
like
notes
carries it. Yeah.
When that key first started moving and like the pre-Force theme stuff, I was like, man, because I always loved Michael Giacchino. Like the soundtrack for Super 8 is so good. And that's another Spielberg throwback from J.J. Abrams.
I love that movie.
So it's just like they've checked all the boxes for me. Everything that I'm experiencing with the show, I'm like, man, the humor's back. Puppets. They got Phil Tippett to come back. Like that guy's famously to be like, I'll do an interview. Don't ask me any Star Wars questions. And then they're like, hey, you want to come make some puppets? And he's like, I'm in. And he's back. And it's
And
just like,
John goes, "I don't want just the puppet. I want all the puppets. Give me
yeah,
all the puppets all the time.
the teak
Stop
thing
motion.
still,
Give me everything."
like the whole teak puppet, because making a little puppet like how they had to do Salacious Crumb back in 1982 when they were making Return of the Jedi. Like a little puppet has to be maybe sometimes more challenging to move and animate. Technology today is better, but versus being, in a suit and you're more of like wearing a costume, but you're moving the hand, it's all just I appreciate it all so much because there is tons of CGI and visual effects, of course, but the way
Mhm.
they've found the blend, it's hard to, unless you're really trying, it's hard to be like, I think that's CG, but that might be, a puppet. It's just like it's all there and it's all real. And the way they executed using the volume, whether they tailored the story knowing they had to use it, or
Mhm.
they were just like, we're telling our story and we got to make this happen with the backing of Favreau and Filoni. Man, this honestly, I know we have a lot of episodes to go, but when I was posting about it on Blue Sky, that's where I roll now, I said this might be my favorite live action Star Wars show since Mando season 2, and it might be my favorite live action Star Wars overall since like Solo. Like, cuz I had so much fun with Solo. I mean, we all
Yeah.
know that. I'm having a lot of fun with the show, but also it has high stakes. Like it has me asking questions. It's not all just a fluff fun thing. Like there's going to be high stakes, danger. These kids are going to get into a lot of trouble, but the way they've set the table with letting us be fully vested in who these kids are and already care about their well-being,
Yeah.
we've checked those boxes. Now we get to really get into the mix with these pirates. They get thrown in jail already. Like there's just so much meat on the bone already. 2 episodes in, I don't know if you noticed, there was an interview. I forget who did it. They asked all the kids, and they may have asked Watson Ford what their favorite episodes were. None of them said the first 3 episodes. We've seen the first 3 episodes. I'll just say this: the third is my favorite, and they're
Mm.
saying neither of those are their favorite. So I don't like to do the hype machine too high,
Buckle
but
up. Buckle up.
buckle up, baby.
I do have to say, as like a final thought to this, is that this show already means so much to me just because it's what I've been craving for so long from Star Wars, from the humor to the adventure. I grew up loving the original trilogy for the creatures and the droids and stuff like that. I love Labyrinth and this like mystical tale where she goes to this new land and meets all these puppets and creatures and stuff. So this is like right up my alley. But this also has a very special place because I'm a mom now. I feel like this is a different situation than I was years ago, of seeing myself react to something in that kid space, but then also in the parent space where you're
Yeah.
watching these two sides and you're like, I kind of understand where he's coming from, but I kind of get where he's coming from. And it's really conflicting because then you start putting yourself in both positions. And like, that is such a complicated emotional ride that I'm very excited to explore throughout this
Yes.
series.
Yeah. Like my wife and her college best friend loved Full House. I liked
Yeah.
it when I was a kid growing up.
So they watched Fuller House.
Well, I watched Fuller House, but
Yeah.
like if I watch an old Full House episode now, I'm Danny now. Like I'm not with the kids hoping they get away with crashing the car through the living room. I'm like Danny. I'm
No.
like, watching over, make sure my kids are safe. It's a different perspective. Wonder Years too. I get the dad now. I completely get it. So I'm not going to be too harsh on the parents on this show because I know
Except the
all.
bedtime story thing. That was no good. No bueno.
Yeah, my son is 6, so in just 4 short years he'll be as the age of Whim. I can't imagine him asking me to tell him a story and me telling him, "Aren't you too old for that?" Are you crazy?
Never, never,
Now,
never, never, never.
yeah, I mean, that did
I'm
make me
telling
angry
you.
at the dad. It did. Yeah.
That's a
Oh,
promise I'm gonna make for my kids for the rest of their life. At any time you come over, you go, "Look, I really need a story. We're reading a book. Pull up a seat, let's go."
yes.
Sometimes we all just need to go somewhere else.
An Easter egg I haven't seen
Yeah.
people talk about yet. Obviously, SM33 quite literally calls the kids gremlins. Love it. Don't feed them after midnight. Don't pour water
Mhm.
on them. But when he runs through the planets, when he doesn't know what Ad Adden is, he says Aldani, which we know is Andor, where Cassian stole credits from.
Mhm.
Adelon from Rebels, and then he says
Mhm.
Al Alcor. Nothing in Star Wars from that, but I tried to Google it, and I found the name Alan Alcorn, and that's the creator of the first video game ever, Pong. Another 80s reference.
This whole thing at times feels very Ready Player One, where you have these little moments here and there that are like, hey, remember this thing, and you have to dig deep. And we've said it before. You can go back and watch these episodes. I watched them, I think, 3 or 4 times now. Go back and rewatch them because you're going to notice something new every time, from what people are saying to things in the background to what's in the scene, all over the place.
Yeah. Al Alcor, I'm almost positive, is a tribute to the dude who invented the first video game ever.
I love that between the two of us, I'm very visual. I see things and I pick up on things that I see in the scene or ways things are shot or whatever. You're very much they said this, so I looked it up and I know what this means.
I'm narrative. I'm story. Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. I guess my parting thoughts so far. I mean, next week, what do we got? Children to watch with us.
Mm-hmm.
We like to speculate with those guys.
We like to get bananas.
It's gonna get wild, I think, because who knows where they're going once they get out of that jail cell. But I think my prevailing thought, at least 2 episodes, 25% of the way through this show, is the true treasure of Skeleton Crew is the show Skeleton Crew, because there's just so much to there's little tiny little nicely placed Easter eggs. It's a visual palette of endless things to look at. I've rewatched it multiple times so I can divert my eyes and look at other things. It's I'll never forget when Adam Witt, friend of the show, check him out in the movie, guys. He's awesome. He was the person who pointed out to me in Return of the Jedi, there's a Jawa standing behind Jabba, fanning him with a giant leaf. I have never noticed that before, and I've seen Return of the Jedi 5 billion times.
Yeah.
So I've already rewatched these episodes a few times. My son watched it, by the way. He gave them both 10 out of 10. He drew
those were so cute. Those were so cute.
Picture of Brutus.
Love it.
And Star Wars retweeted it and replied. So I told Johnny that today, and he was like, Star Wars, talk to me.
The Star Wars.
The Star Wars? I'm like, yes, Star Wars sent you a heart emoji and said thank you for your review.
You should print that out so you can bring it to school for show and tell.
I should, but he was so excited. I just think we really have a win here, and I think Star Wars needed it. I think it's the perfect show for what's going on right now. Also, the time of year with the holidays. It's just, I think this is a massive win for Star Wars, and I think this show flew under the radar. I think people were looking at Andor because that was a massive, popular with diehard fans, but I think this getting a little underhyped has served it well, because now I'm through the roof, and
everybody likes pirates.
Exactly. Yeah. So Lacey, any final thoughts before we close up the base until next week?
I can't wait to talk about next week's episode, guys.
It's my favorite so far.
So
and 2 was better than 1. So if that trend continues, we are building. Yeah. And I really think Jude Law is gonna just take the show to another level. And the kids are great. They really are. I think
he could be nominated for many an award.
I hope he wins all the awards. Yes.
Me too.
Yes. All right. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us, being Galactic Goonies with us. It's a name that I think, a term that's going to stick around the base for a while, because that's sort of what we all are. We're Goonies, but we love our Star Wars, and that's what it's really all about. So thanks for listening, watching, being a part of TRB. It's always a good time. We hope you had a good time. We're just getting started here. Guest kickoff next week with Children of the Watch, followed by Star Wars Explained, followed by Jen Marie from Anakin and His Angel. The contest treasure hunt will continue with a trivia question next week. So we hope you caught this one. And there's a lot of great prizes coming your way if you're going to be the best of all the pirates come end of the season. It looks like we have one more super chat before we hop on out of here.
All right. Super chats from Neil again. Thank you, Neil, so
Neil.
much.
Thanks,
Of course,
buddy.
Neil. This is Neil's show. Thank you so much for a great premiere episode of Galactic Goonies. Skeleton Crew is totally wizard. Can't wait for next week. Hashtag Neil Nation.
Thank you,
I
buddy.
get it. I can't wait to watch it again, too. I'm so excited.
I am. We do have to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/TRB podcasts. Thanks for all of your support. And if you haven't yet and you're able to, consider supporting the pod. Tier start at $5, and we have a lot of exclusive content on there. We're changing a lot of things up for 2025. It's going to be a big year for us. So thanks for coming on the ride with us. Special shout out to the Generals and Spice Runners. The Generals are Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Ramori, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Colin Cormier, Stephen Garrow, Sachi, and Darth Snips. The new general. Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian. And however you support TRB, whether you just listen, whether you watch, whether you get the t-shirt, whatever. Thank you so much. It's so fun to do this with all of you, and it means the world to us. So make sure you subscribe to the show, of course, for free on your platforms and rate us and all that good stuff. You know the deal. For me, Johnny Hoey on Blue Sky. I'm still on X. Can't let go, but Blue Sky's the spot for me. And then my movie pod, just like the movies. We're doing Wolf of Wall Street next week. Lacey, where can people hit you up?
People can find me on social media at Lacey Gillerin and on TikTok at It's Lacey Gillerin. And of course, on Mondays on Nerdy and Nice. Prepare yourselves. The Pharrell Grinch rant is coming.
Lacey ends the career of Pharrell Williams on one episode of Nerdy and Nice. So get ready.
But yeah, I can't wait. Guys, this was so fun. It's been a tough couple of weeks for us, and we just couldn't be more elated and excited to be talking about a Star Wars series, especially this one. I've been dreaming of this series for years. And I'm just so happy it's here.
I almost wish we did the State of Star Wars after the show came out, which
I know.
we'll do the winter edition.
I'm at an A right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm at an A.
The show is off to a great start. Congrats to the cast and crew. We are fired up. Fans are fired up. Star Wars has a win here. My kids love it. It's as Michael Scott said, it's a win-win-win-win all around. But thank you all so much. We're about to get out of here. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We hope the holiday season is treating you well. Nerds, we'll see you Monday. Everyone else, you Galactic Goonies, we'll see you next week right here on Galactic Goonies, 8:30 East, about episode 3 with Children of the Watch. So until next time, we'll see you around, kids.